Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Would you take a look at CNN's cover page? It is Donald Trump's mug with another ridiculous headline, something we've become very used to since July when he announced his presidential campaign. The headline is, "I'm doing good for Muslims," and this comes days after Donald Trump has been bashing Muslims, saying he'd ban them from the country, ban them from flight. It also comes after months of making racist and bigoted remarks towards Muslims, blacks, Hispanics, and pretty much everyone else. It's very obvious why Donald Trump is getting the attention that he is. It's not because he's a good man. It's not because he has good ideas. It's because this mainstream media is here to provoke and divide, and this guy is a perfect puppet to do just that. And the time we're being bombarded with nonstop fear propaganda, shooting stories, bombing stories, ISIS stories, black versus white stories, we get a lot of Donald Trump mixed in, giving us more rhetoric to fuel the hatred in this country. This headline is another headline that looks contrived, and it's another headline with coded gematria with a coded message. Notice what this says: "I'm doing good for Muslims." A completely ridiculous statement after all the rhetoric he's put out about Islam. I'll show you what's special about this phrase. "I'm doing good for Muslims" has a gematria of 113, just like the words mainstream, dishonest, and green screen. I can think back to July when Donald Trump first announced he was running and got major media attention for saying, "Who's doing the raping?" while blaming it on Mexicans who illegally enter the country. And then just days after that story, this rhetoric put out by Donald Trump, we get a story out of San Francisco where supposedly an illegal immigrant from Mexico found a federal agent's gun and accidentally shot a woman to death on the San Francisco pier. And the man's name was Juan Francisco Sanchez Lopez, a completely ridiculous name that in Gematria also summed to 113, like mainstream and dishonest. I'm just so fed up with the Donald Trump headlines, Truth Seeker, and all this poisonous programming. Remember, the name Trump equals 88, just like the words poison and program. As for that coding of 113, it's no coincidence. It comes from Baba Kama 113a. And for those of you who aren't aware, this comes from the Talmud, a Jewish text. The Jewish people have had a lot of influence in this world, including founding this nation, the United States, that speaks English. And if you study English and its origins, there's a lot of secrecy around it. There's a lot of information that's not known. I theorize that the Jewish people have had a major influence in crafting the English language. Baba Kama 113a says Jews may use lies to circumvent Gentiles, which are non Jews. So, in other words, it's okay for a Jew to lie to someone who's not a Jew. And who runs our media, Truth Seeker? The Jews do. And they run a whole lot more. They run a lot of politicians, including Donald Trump. Look at who his handler is. His handler is Michael Cohen. Cohen, a Jewish name. And let me show you what's so interesting about this name, Michael Cohen. It has a gematria of 96, like Freemason. A lot of people point out that the Freemasons are really just a Jewish creation, and Freemasons themselves are proxy Jews whether they realize it or not. The phrase for the Holocaust is "never again," which has a gematria of 96. And for anyone who studied the Holocaust, they know it is a book of lies, propaganda for an agenda that includes Israel and more. A lot of people also say Freemasonry is Satanism in disguise. Freemason, Satanism, 96. So don't be confused why Donald Trump's out there making this poisonous rhetoric. He's just the puppet for the people behind him, such as Michael Cohen, the people who control our media and who are actively programming the masses with constant negativity and division. I just put together a new playlist. If you go to my videos and watch the playlist, it's called the Donald Trump playlist. This is the first video I made on Donald Trump back in July. I showed how all the headlines that were being put out by him were coded with stuff such as this: I'm doing good for Mormons 113. Go back and watch that. You'll see the history of this. Also did this video, Donald Trump says, I am Batman, then Batman and Batgirl die the next day. If you only have time to watch one of these videos, I'd watch that one. It's humorous, and it shows you how this whole show that the media puts on works. This video right here is one that I made months after the July one, and I took a bunch of headlines, maybe 20 some headlines, showed how they're all coded and how they all synced up with the story. For example, Donald Trump made negative remarks about Pope Francis, and they put it in the hyphens, the emphasis, and the phrase within had a gematria of 122, just like the word Pope Francis or the name Pope Francis. So much of this stuff with Donald Trump and coded headlines. If you watch these videos, you'll know it's no coincidence the numbers coded into these headlines, which is what I want people to understand. That this is something the media is really doing to us actively all the time. In addition to the Donald Trump videos, I also stuck in some other political ones here. Talked about the Republican debate. I also talk about some of the coding for Donald Trump in this video. In the first Republican debate, they said that Donald Trump was the 133rd richest man in the world. That's concerning because White House and government both equal 133. Hopefully, they're not telling us where he's going to end up. I still can't imagine that, but if it did happen, it would just remind me that I live in the United States, a completely mad nation. Also talked about the Republican and Democratic debate, the synchronicities there. Put out some videos on Ben Carson. Ben Carson, another fraud. Him and Donald Trump have been at the top of the Republican candidates since July. Ben Carson dipping a little bit lately, but he's another fraud and people should know it. And also, here's the video about where Donald Trump makes the nasty remarks about Mexicans, and then there's the shooter on the San Francisco pier, supposedly, if you want to check that out. If you want to search my channel, you can always, if you're looking for, if I have content on something, you can just type in my name, and you can type in the topic, like Hillary Clinton. And all the videos will come up that I've done on Hillary. I've covered a lot of the politicians, exposing that they're nothing more than actor agents helping wage an agenda against us. So please check out these videos. Please learn this language of gematria, and then please share with your friends and family what's really going on here, especially the people who are supporting Donald Trump, which is just completely ridiculous. You know, there's a lot of people who like Donald Trump, and it's just pathetic. You know, these people really need to be woken up. They don't realize that he's just here to make things worse and rile us up and tear us further apart. All the people who like this man are essentially endorsing this agenda. And that's awful. So, a lot of people that need to get woken up. This research, this knowledge, it can do it. Until next time, truth seekers.